Okay, that's the meeting commenced. Welcome in, everybody. Welcome to the next in our series of MAHSC Inaugural Lectures. Without further ado, I'll hand over to Tina to introduce our session for today.
Thank you, Pete. Welcome, everyone. I'm absolutely thrilled today to be doing the introduction from my amazing colleague, Professor Pietro D'Urso, for his inaugural lecture as a MAHSC Honorary Clinical Chair for University of Manchester. I'm also delighted to be part of his very special day and celebrate with him his richly deserved recognition. I'm a neurosurgical consultant myself, and Pietro is one of the most talented and charismatic surgeons I have worked with and have been around for more than 3 decades now, and who keeps constantly reinventing himself and pushing the surgical boundaries to new heights. Pietro will talk about his journey surely very soon, but I'll just say a few things. He did his medical school in Italy and then came to UK to consolidate his surgical experience under amazing mentors at King's College London, followed by a research fellowship at the Mayo Clinic in the US. We're very lucky that he chose to join us here in Manchester, and he was appointed as a consultant with a special interest in neuro-oncology in 2014, and since then he has been working tirelessly, adopting new technologies such as pioneering intraoperative monitoring, championing minimally invasive surgery, robotic surgery, and undertaking the most complex operations that not only he masterfully completes, but he plans them very thoroughly and masters them with precision and the utmost skill. His post-operative outcomes talk for themselves. They are superb, and the feedback from his patients are outstanding. Let alone his operation notes that are so detailed and elaborate that each one of them can be a tutorial and a teaching session in itself. His contribution to the neuro-oncology service has been outstanding and enabled us to be part of a service that was granted the Sajal Center of Excellence status and to be now well recognized in UK and internationally. He is also the lead neurosurgeon for the proton beam service. Pietro enjoys teaching. He is involved in the undergraduate medical student teaching and he likes mentoring students, guiding them to achieving their maximum potential, as well as all our residents and fellows who have so much to learn from him, his surgical technique, resilience, stamina, and surgical acumen. He has authored many papers and book chapters, and I'm sure he's going to talk about them himself. But what I would like to talk a little bit is about Pietro as a colleague. He's always very helpful. He has boundless enthusiasm. After all, I think that comes along with his Italian temperament. He will never say no to take over more surgical cases. The more complex and more challenging, the better. He loves his gadgets. And he always discovers new gadgets, and that goes hand in hand with embracing and promoting new technology to improve the service and the outcomes to his patients. And finally, outside work, he is a devoted family man, husband to the lovely and very supportive Helen D'Urso, and has 3 lovely, beautiful children, as well as a very close-knit family in Puglia, Italy, one of the most beautiful parts of the South Europe, that I had the opportunity to meet at their wedding 11 years ago. One of the other skills that not many people will know is that Pietro is also a keen piano player, and I've listened to him playing. I won't take any more time from his lecture. I will let Pietro introduce himself and take us through his journey, and I'm sure there will be time to take questions at the end. Pietro, over to you.
Oh, Tina, thank you so much. I feel a bit dizzy now. Thank you. I really appreciate this very kind introduction. And good afternoon, everyone. And thank you very much for sharing your time with me today. It is a real privilege to deliver my inaugural lecture. I'll be honored to share with you my personal journey at the edge of the brain. And that is exactly what this is intended to be, not a scientific lecture alone, but a personal journey through places, people, operations, ideas, failures, friendships, and the extraordinary privilege of looking after the human brain. I should probably begin with some disclosures. And as Tina has anticipated, I'm Italian, which means there is a reasonable chance I will use my hands more while speaking than while operating. And secondly, despite many years in the UK, I still believe most problems can be improved with coffee, olive oil, and why not good anatomy. Coffee, anatomy, passion, and perhaps a slightly excessive level of enthusiasm. But behind the humor, there is something serious. Neurosurgery is not simply a technical discipline. It is a discipline built on curiosity, obsession with details, teamwork, and continuous learning. Neurosurgery is the privilege and responsibility of caring for people's brain. There are very few professions where another human being allows you to approach what makes them, their memories, their language, their emotions, their identity, and this privilege should never become a routine. Well, the brain remains the most extraordinary structure we know, protected by bone, by fluid, by biology, and evolution itself has protected the brain very well. Despite all our technology, there is still enormous humility in neurosurgery. Every single operation reminds me how little margin for error exists. Millimeters matter, but equally important, humanity matters. And I'm always conscious that beyond scans, beyond anatomy, every patient has fears, has hopes, has families, has a story. This has been a journey across 3 countries, essentially. Italy gave me passion, gave me foundations. America expanded my academic horizons. The UK gave me extraordinary mentors, opportunities, and ultimately a professional home. Different systems, different cultures, different lessons, but always with the same goal, trying to improve outcomes for patients. Sometimes the longest journeys begin in the smallest places, and mine certainly did. I was born in Brindisi and grew up in a small village of San Michele Salentino in southern Italy. Life was simple and beautiful. Olive trees, countryside, sea, sunny days that seemed endless. I grew up between truly music, open spaces. It was peaceful, beautiful, but at the same time, full of energy. I think that the environment shaped me profoundly, made me curious about everything, interested in people, interested in how things work, and probably incapable of staying still for too long. Music was also a very important part of my childhood. The piano became a companion very early in my life. And interestingly, I think music and neurosurgery have more in common than people imagine. Timing, precision, rhythm, discipline, emotions. This journey eventually took me to multiple places. At the time, none of this was planned with a grand strategy. I simply kept following opportunities to learn. And one lesson I learned very early was that my career is often shaped more by people than by places. In the mid-90s, I moved to Bari, where I started and completed my medical school. Moving to Bari was a fantastic experience. Wonderful people, fantastic teachers, extraordinary food, and there's still plenty of sun and sea to maintain my energy levels. In my second year of medical school, I met Professor Glauco Ambrosi, a great anatomist and teacher. Some teachers simply transfer information. others ignite something. He transmitted a passion for the nervous system that completely changed my direction. Through neuroanatomy, I really fell in love with the brain, not simply as an organ, but almost as a universe, so complex, so beautiful, mysterious, and actually intellectually irresistible. I completed my neurosurgical training in Bari. During those years, I tried to be academically active while exploring many different areas of neurosurgery, spanning from vascular, spine, oncology, scalp base. I was fortunate to collaborate not only with neurosurgeons, but also with pathologists, geneticists, oncologists, biologists, scientists. This was probably my first real exposure to multidisciplinary neuroscience. Essentially, the realization that progress comes from interaction. After I completed my training, I moved to Benevento as a young neurosurgeon. Fabulous experience. Those years taught me independence, responsibility, decision-making. As a young neurosurgeon, and even nowadays, every operation feels enormous. And in many ways, it should, because patients trust us completely. And I learned a great deal, clinically and personally. And then I flew to the States, which felt both exciting and terrifying. Different continent, different culture, different health system. And for the first time, I had a real sense of stepping outside my comfort zone. The Mayo Clinic experience was transformative. I went there to improve my research skills and to experience neurosurgery in a completely different environment. I was fascinated by the scale of the innovation, by the organization per se, by the multidisciplinary culture, by how intense the academic life was there. It was an extraordinary experience, but importantly, it broadened my understanding of what neurosurgery could become. Professor Lanzino was an exceptional mentor in Mayo. Incredible stamina, incredible academic drive, energy levels that were honestly difficult to keep up with, even with a Southern Italian. I learned enormously from him. I observed, I listened, and with his support, we managed to produce academic work, predominantly in neurovascular surgery. More importantly, it taught me that and what true academic commitment should be. Well, Rochester, where Mayo is, it is quite a cold place. I remember snow, quite a lot of snow, and certainly compared to Italy, not an enormous amount happening outdoors, particularly after work. But there was something beautiful about that year. Focus, hard work, and that sense of adaptation I had to put in place. And I also discovered that hospitals can occasionally benefit from music. So I did not miss the opportunity to entertain patients or visitors in the hall at St. Mary's Hospital. Well, neurosurgery and music, what a combination, but music often became a way of recharging after difficult days. Then came the call from London after I applied for a fellowship at King's. King's was another extraordinary experience, clinically intense, very stimulating, filled with exceptional mentors. Many of those friendships and collaborations continue today. That period fundamentally shaped my development as a neuro-oncology surgeon. And at King's, most of my academic energy shifted into clinics and operating theatres. A lot of operating, a lot of learning, a lot of observing. Those years clarified my subspecialty interest in neuro-oncology. Well, during fellowship, publication output dropped, but honestly, those clinically and operative experiences were invaluable. Then in 2014, I moved to Salford. And actually, people often ask me, but what made you move from sunny Puglia to Salford? Well, I promise I'll answer this by the end of my talk. Building a practice takes time, not simply technically, but culturally. You build relationships, trust, you build systems, teams, and you gradually begin understanding that sustainable excellence is not an individual process. And I have been incredibly fortunate to meet fantastic people here. Tina, James Legate, now retired, Helen May, David Coop, Matt Bailey, and all my neurosurgical colleagues. Together, we have developed services around awake surgery, neurophysiology, mapping, minimally invasive approaches, enhanced recovery. The goal, always the same, improve outcomes while preserving function. Tumor surgery is not simply about removing pathology. And indeed, surgery is not just about survival, it is about preserving people. It is about preserving movement, language, cognition, personality, identity. And the brain is where identity lives. And this is why awake surgery became such a passion. It constantly reminds us that function matters as much as anatomy, if not more. Over time, we have developed strong interests in rare tumors and also in advanced neuro-oncology, particularly with Tina. Through collaborations, trials, lectures, research networks, we have contributed to broader national efforts as well. But we always believed research should remain clinically grounded. Science is valuable when it changes the lives of patients, not only when it produces papers. But over the years, we have steadily produced some science from our clinical work. Our passion for awake surgery and neurophysiology has also generated interest in a few people. And together with Stuart Lodwick, we began exploring thalamocortical radiations, analyzing data directly in vivo. This was exciting because it brought neuroscience directly into the operating theatre, not theory alone, but living functional anatomy. But despite all the research, I always remain emotionally attached to the best rooms in the hospital, the operating theatres. That is where science, technology, pressure, humanity, and the teamwork all meet simultaneously. As a team, we share a passion for awake surgery, no doubt about it. But we also share a passion for innovation, for improving outcomes. And honestly, there are few things more satisfying than seeing a patient awake, moving, speaking, and smiling after complex surgery. At the same time, we have remained very open to collaboration with scientists, including Costas Costarellos and many national and international teams. These collaborations allowed us to contribute to important translational work. And again, the lesson was the same. Complex problems require multidisciplinary thinking. We've also remained closely connected with our oncology colleagues, pathologists, trainees, researchers, and together we became involved in the first ever trial of preoperative radiotherapy in glioblastoma, a tremendous achievement led by Dr. Borst and the wider team. This is exactly how progress happens, through collective energy. We have indeed contributed to some larger scientific projects, but we always tried to remain attached to practical field work. Sometimes relatively simple interventions like perioperative hair wash can make enormous differences for patients. Not every innovation needs to be futuristic technology. Sometimes improvement comes from refining details. Teaching has also been extremely important to me, and we have spent a lot of time in the lab, particularly with Professor Ron Caroli, with students. This was happening more often before COVID. We have done plenty of dissections, teaching anatomy, learning together, sharing experiences. Ultimately, knowledge in medicine should never be owned. It should be passed forward. I think this slide summarizes something I really strongly believe in. The neuron alone cannot function properly without glial cells. Glial cells alone have little meaning without neurons. Complex systems certainly depend on collaboration, and medicine is exactly the same. No one succeeds alone in neurosurgery. No one. Not scientifically, not technically, not emotionally. And I'm afraid I may disappoint you, but I have not achieved a single thing entirely on my own. Everything here reflects teamwork. I will start with my fantastic secretary, Kira, without whom my work life would collapse within 48 hours. My neurosurgical colleagues, all the trainees and fellows who have joined us, our fantastic CNS nurses, our neuropsychologists, neurophysiologists, nurses, therapists, researchers, and special thanks to Dr. Duplessis, and particularly to Professor Roncaroli. Well, he's an exceptional academic with a phenomenal drive, with a fantastic vision. I owe him a great deal for the encouragement and for the support he has given me through the years, and also in reaching this achievement. It is both a privilege and an inspiration to work alongside him. And what can I say about our anesthetists, our best friends in theatre, dedicated to patients, constantly pushing for better outcomes, and frequently keeping surgeons humble. I believe that awake surgery would simply not function without them. And finally, Professor Tina Carabazzo. I can call Tina as our neuro-oncology queen. Tina is exceptional at everything: surgery, patient care, science, mentorship, leadership. She has been one of the most important people in my professional life and a true friend throughout this journey. And also, surprisingly, a very good dancer. Well, a journey as a past, as a present, as a future. And what about the future? So we are not just sitting back and relaxing. We are thinking about what next steps are. And we are thinking about indeed improving technology, improving visualization in theatre, but also exploring more and more minimally invasive techniques. And there are trials we are planning to commence very soon for laser interstitial thermal therapy, plenty of other trials. Well, the challenges are significant, but the opportunities are enormous, and we will continue striving to bring things to the next level. Well, teamwork also means cross-specialty interaction. Well, listening to senior colleagues, learning from them, occasionally try to convince them like my colleague, Mr. Patel, that our neurosurgical technology is not entirely unreasonable. Well, medicine progresses through dialogue. Well, despite publications, lectures, operations, titles, research, the greatest achievement remains family. My wife, my children keep everything in perspective. My parents, my brothers, they are all my grounding point. Well, what about the neurosurgeon at home? Well, I'm afraid I may have failed in passing Italian language well to my children, and I have quite a bit of regret. But perhaps I did a little bit better in transmitting interest in music and the piano. And I completely failed in interesting them in neurosurgery, which honestly may be psychologically very healthy for them. However, in the kitchen, that was a complete success. My kids now understand one of the great truths of life. There is no such thing as too much olive oil. Well, what a life at the age of the brain constantly teaches me is that humility, precision, compassion, teamwork, and above all, humanity are all essential. And the closer I look at the brain, the more humility it demands. I love this quote from Henry Ford. If I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. Well, innovation in neurosurgery often feels exactly like this. Progress requires challenging assumptions. Well, the best is out there. And I believe that our responsibility is to keep searching for it. Progress in neurosurgery does not come from accepting what is available. It comes from constantly questioning, refining, learning, and pursuing something better for our patients. Perhaps that also answers the earlier question. Why move from sunny Puglia to Salford? Because I found extraordinary people here. Energy, vision, friendship, collaboration, and a place where it felt possible to keep searching for better. And thank you very much, and thank you to everyone who has been part of this journey.
Wow. Thank you, Pietro, for this amazing talk. I'm sure everyone would agree that your enthusiasm and passion on brain surgery, brain tumors is outstanding. And what comes across is that you not only treat patients with, obviously with your utmost skill, everybody knows that, but you treat them as individuals, you care about them, and as you said, their identity. And actually that makes me feel very emotional, because this is what we have all chosen neurosurgery for, and I'm glad we have all chosen each other to be colleagues and great friends. Also, thank you for highlighting the importance of teamwork. I think that's amazing. Also for the younger colleagues, I think it's a lesson that they should take on. Nothing can be achieved. I know greatness comes in all being able to work together. And over the years, I think we have pushed each other, and I think that has been our greatest achievement. Well done for getting your very well richly deserved, as I said, clinical chair. And I don't know, Pete, if we can have any questions from the audience.
Yes, we've got plenty of time for questions. If anyone would like to use the raise their hand function, I can then allow you to access your microphone and camera to ask Pietro a question. Just while people are having a think, Pietro, I just wanted to come to you and ask if there was one thing about neurosurgery and the wider context around it within Greater Manchester that you think there is a gap at the moment that we could be targeting. What would you pick out as an example of that?
Oh, that's a difficult question. Yeah. A very, very difficult question. And probably is exactly the reason this is a difficult question is that as a team, we have thought about it and we have identified what gaps are. Yeah. And the only biggest possibly the only biggest challenge for us will be intraoperative MRI. If I had to say, probably that is still the only outstanding things that in which we need to put a lot of work towards. Probably that is the only outstanding thing, because the rest, as a fact, we are we have thought, and there is a plan in place for the majority of all the other fields, frankly.
That's great, thank you. Okay, so Jackie, I will just allow you to access your microphone and camera.
Okay, Pietro, Professor Durso, I should say.
Oh,
absolutely.
Pietro is right.
Can you hear me okay? Yeah.
Yes,
Huge
I can.
congratulations. Yes. It's no mean feat to be granted a professorship. And I'm deeply, deeply moved by what I've just heard from your presentation. And for full disclosure, if I may, I'm the mum of somebody you've operated on twice now, okay, who's currently undergoing, starting a new treatment on chemotherapy for his astrocytoma. And I think one of the things that I took from your talk was the depth of feeling that you as a surgeon have for your patients and your patients' families. And please don't underestimate what that means, because for those of us caring for a brain tumor loved ones, it's not just a case of respect, but also humanity. You use the word humanity, and I wanted to reflect back and say how far that goes to those of us who feel, you know, that we have very little control in this situation. But I suppose my question follows from that, if I may, and I'm thinking about the immense expertise that you've just described, you know, the interdisciplinarity of it, the medical side of it, but also the human side of it. And those of us who are looking after
in Manchester, but we need that funding. So yes, you can contribute to that, and our CNSs can guide you how we have a fund that people can contribute towards.
Thank you very much. I will reach out afterwards because I do want to pursue this further. We do have some ideas. Thank you. I will.
Okay. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you for that, Tina, Pietro. So, Salman, I believe you were next. So I've just given you your microphone and camera permissions if you'd like to switch those on to ask your question.
We cannot hear you, Salman.
Oh, yes.